Welcome to this week's Sight for Wight Talking News for Friday the 2nd of April 2021.
Alison reading an article from the Island Echo entitled Multi-Agency Response to Unwell Teen on the Shoreline at Gurnard. A multi-agency operation involving HM Coast Guard, COWS RNLI, police and ambulance crews was launched late Wednesday night in response to a teenager needing medical assistance at Gurnard. The incident began around 2300 hours when a 16-year-old girl known to suffer with cystic fibrosis became unwell on a fairly remote section of coastline between Cowes and Thorness. Paramedics from the Isle of Wight ambulance service responded to the scene, but it soon became clear that further assistance was required. The Needles Coast Guard rescue team was tasked to the incident, with assistance then requested from Cowes RNLI lifeboat. The female casualty was taken on board the lifeboat and extracted to Trinity Landing in Cowes for onward conveyance to St Mary's Hospital by ambulance. Emergency services then stood down and the incident was closed by 0100 hours.
This is Den reading from the Island Echo. Capsized kayaker rescued in the Western Solent. A kayaker who capsized and was spotted floating in the Western Solent was rescued by a Yarmouth lifeboat early on Saturday afternoon. Solent Coast Guard received reports from two local kite surfers of a kayaker in difficulty near Colwell Bay at just before 15:10. Volunteers from Yarmouth RNLI launched the all-weather lifeboat and made best speed towards Colwell. Once on scene, the lifeboat crew were quickly able to locate a man in the water who was being supported and observed by one of the two kite surfers until help arrived. Volunteers at Needles NCI also kept eyes on the casualty from their lookout tower. The male casualty was secured into a sling and lifted safely aboard the lifeboat using an A-frame. Having assessed the kayaker for injuries, the crew then recovered the kayak and secured it to the starboard deck of the lifeboat. The casualty and his kayak were taken back to Yarmouth Harbour and checked over. Crew member Alex Pym has said, "The kayaker had all the necessary safety equipment on board. He had also made sure that contacts on land knew where he was, but the conditions were lively. 20 knots of southwesterly winds and a swell of half a metre would have made it extremely difficult for the lone kayaker to right his boat." Graham Benton, Deputy Coxswain, adds, "The quick-thinking support of the two local kite surfers turned what could have been a tragic accident into a rescue with a positive outcome. The incident was over within just 45 minutes.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. A garage in Bembridge has been fined after 2018 employee pitfall. A garage in Bembridge has been fined after an employee suffered life-changing injuries after falling into a vehicle inspection pit in 2018. GP Motorworks has been fined £10,000 and ordered to pay costs of £10,000. The incident happened on September the 3rd, 2018, as Isle of Wight Radio reported at the time. Portsmouth Magistrates Court heard how the person in question fell into a pit which was more than 5 feet deep. They were carrying out mechanical repairs to a nearby vehicle. The pit was partially covered with a small vehicle, leaving around 7 feet of the pit uncovered and without any other measures in place to prevent exposing employees to an unnecessary fall risk. The employee sustained serious head and shoulder injuries which required surgery. An investigation by the Health and Safety Executive, HSE, found the company had failed to ensure the pit had any physical measures, such as barriers or pit covers, in place to prevent a person falling into it. Speaking after the hearing, HSE Inspector Kate Clark said, "Serious injuries or death can be prevented if basic safeguards such as barriers or pit covers are put in place. There is clear guidance for garages about vehicle inspection pits." GP Motorworks Limited of Embankment Road, Bembridge, Isle of Wight, pleaded guilty to breaching Section 2, subsection 1 of the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974.
This is an article from the Isle of Wight County Press, read by Sue. Isle of Wight Football Club, grounds vandalised. An Isle of Wight Football Club's chairman has slammed the conduct of problem people in the area after their ground was vandalised. Sandown Youth Football Club's Richard Mirthwaite said children were set to return to the Fairway ground on Monday for sports, but a deep clean-up is now due. Richard said, "Sadly, we will have to do a deep clean-up of our football field before we can safely allow the children to play with fun and safety." As if COVID is not enough to deal with, we now have to contend with a problem people who feel it's acceptable, when they are meant to be in lockdown, to congregate on our field, setting fires, drinking, breaking glass bottles and trying to vandalise our facilities. We have notified the police and I hope they catch this group soon. If any local residents see, hear or witness any of the above, please contact the police so we can ensure this field is safe for the children and also for many local people who use it for genuine recreational activities.
Alison reading from the Isle of Wight County Press. Historic change as Isle of Wight Zoo becomes Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary. One of the Isle of Wight's most prominent animal reserves will be reopening under a new name and identity on April the 12th. Formerly known as Sandown Zoo, the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary is making changes to reflect its new role as a rescue-first sanctuary for threatened wildlife. It's a significant moment for the sanctuary, and one that puts the island at the front line of the protection of endangered species. Lawrence Bates, Chief Operating Officer, said, "We are reopening as the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary to better reflect the work we do in rescuing animals in dire circumstances around Europe. We look for animals needing a habitat where they can flourish and be rehabilitated. We're now embracing this angle of our work. COVID meant we lost our visitor income, and we've noticed subtle behaviour changes in our animals as they enjoy the visitors. It's been a juggling act, but we look forward to the animals being visited by the public again later this month and have been building up and preparing the site so it is safe and ready for people to visit all their favourite animals." Over time, the Isle of Wight Zoo had transitioned its role from one of a traditional zoological park to the role of a sanctuary. Far from a traditional zoo, it evolved into a shared space for rescued animals to flourish in a caring environment and for humans to be inspired and learn from the natural world surrounding them. As a result, being called a sanctuary was considered more fitting for its activities on the island and for the empowering experience people have when they visit. In line with government guidelines, the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary is scheduled to reopen to the public on April the 12th. In order to comply with social distancing regulations, there will be a cap on numbers, and advanced booking is recommended to avoid disappointment.
This is Den reading from the Island Echo. Councillors will meet in person again from May as government refuse to extend legislation. Isle of Wight Council meetings will have to be held face-to-face for the first time in over a year after the May elections, as the government has decided not to extend legislation. The ruling has been slammed by the Local Government Association, the LGA, but the Isle of Wight Council has just said it will put the finishing touches to its plans. During the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic last year, legislation was passed by the government to allow council meetings across England and Wales to be held remotely to protect participants and stop the spread of the virus. Over the last year, that has meant some of the biggest Isle of Wight issues, including the council's budget for the upcoming year, have been agreed from the comfort of councillors' homes. While there may have been some issues with councillors forgetting to turn their microphones off, speaking over one another and technical difficulties, it allowed operations to continue during these unprecedented times. On Thursday, MPs voted to extend emergency coronavirus powers for another 6 months, but the government decided it was not possible to bring forward the emergency legislation to allow councils to continue holding remote meetings. In a letter to council leaders, Luke Hall, local government minister, said the decision was made with the excellent progress of the vaccination progress, the reduction of cases and the roadmap out of lockdown in mind. Mr Hall recognised there may be concerns about holding face-to-face meetings, but with all of those factors, he said, there should be a significant reduction in risk for local authority members to meet in person from the 7th of May, the day after local elections. Local authorities have a legal obligation to ensure members of the press and public can access the meeting, so Mr Hall recommended live streaming continue until at least the 21st of June, the last phase in the lockdown roadmap, but it was up to the individual councils to decide how they would like to proceed. Responding to the news, the Isle of Wight Council said as a result of the decision, its contingency planning measures will be finalised to ensure formal meetings be conducted in a COVID-secure manner. One of the first meetings in the council's calendar after the legislation ends will be the first meeting of the new full council, which would see 39 councillors and a number of council officers meet in person for the first time in a year. Councillor James Jamieson, chairman of the LGA, said that the decision is extremely disappointing, stating the government's own roadmap only allows indoor gatherings run by a public body to be organised after the 17th of May, and that MPs will be able to participate remotely in proceedings until the 21st of June. But the powers that be will not make time available to allow councillors to do the same. He said it was likely to be a significant challenge for local authorities and urged the government to reverse its decision and not force meetings to be held physically until all the restrictions are lifted.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. Huge disappointment. Isle of Wight Pride 2021 cancelled. The trustees of Isle of Wight Pride say they have made the difficult decision to cancel this year's event. Having continued to follow developments with the pandemic, organisers say the parade and Pride event proposed for July will no longer go ahead. They say the decision is not one they have taken lightly. A spokesman said the major considerations have been concerns that the final milestone date in mid-June will be met, leaving less than 1 month before the actual day of Pride. The same applies to dates in May, still maintaining a number of restrictions would not enable volunteers adequate time for the preparation of the day to take place effectively. As a charity, we also must consider the risk to us of investing money in planning for an event which might not be able to take place, and that this could result in significant debt and perhaps loss of the charity and the event itself in future years. We also need to put the safety and well-being of our communities, the wider public and our valued volunteers first. This decision is not one we've taken lightly, as we had big plans, including returning to the beach. It is a huge disappointment to us all. We have also considered how the crisis may have impacted many of our local sponsors, some of whom rely heavily on tourism. This will make fundraising to pay for the activities extremely difficult. Trustees say they hope to hold several community engagement activities and small events around the island later in the year. They say, all being well with the world, the event will return fully on 16th of July 2022.
Hello, this is an article read from the Isle of Wight County Press by Sue. Island NFU's new chair looks forward to relaxation of COVID rules. The new chair of the Isle of Wight NFU is well known to many within the rural community. Robin Munt is a farm secretary and mother of two from Parkwater Farm, Newport, and is the daughter of sheep farmers Les and Carol Morris. Robin is married to Ryan Munt, who together with his business partner Marcus Rickard owns and runs MR Agri, the Isle of Wight class machinery dealership near Newport. She said, "I'm looking forward to a phased relaxation of COVID regulations so our everyday lives can begin to return to normal. As farmers, I believe we not only produce high-quality food, but are both the managers and custodians of many of the island's stunning landscapes that have been farmed for centuries. During the pandemic, the island's food system has come into its own, with customers valuing a safe and secure supply of food available from local businesses." Mrs. Munt backed the Island Young Farmers Club and believes in education about food and farming, such as the programme delivered by the NFU Education. She added, "I think it is important our children and young people know where their food comes from and teachers know where to find reputable online resources about farming and food, all of which are available at NFU Education. Island farmers take great pride in showcasing what they are doing, and a number of our members regularly host educational visits on their farms, ensuring the next generation grows up valuing agriculture." Following the NFU's annual conference last month, Robin Munt took up the reins as NFU chairman from livestock farm Matt Legg of Duxmoor near Newport.
Alison reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio entitled New Era for Hampshire and Isle of Wight as Combined Fire Authority Launches. The long-awaited merger of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight's fire service has been deemed a momentous point in history as it officially comes into effect on Thursday. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service, HIWFRS, will work across 61 stations, protecting nearly 2 million residents. The newly formed organisation will see services across Hampshire and the island work closer together, but those in charge say the move will not mean a change in the way fire engines respond and no stations will be closing. It's hoped stations on the Isle of Wight and on the mainland will feel the benefits of an estate investment programme, as well as improvements that will see firefighters use modern technology. The two services have worked closely over the last 5 years as part of the Delivering Differently in Partnership arrangement, and the new service will see existing relationships built upon. Neil Odin, Chief Fire Officer for HIWFRS, said, "Today we bring together two organisations with rich histories and reputations of high standards and partnership working, for the benefit of our people across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. This is an historic day for the fire service. Ever since it was decided we would explore combination in 2018, an incredible amount of work has been undertaken by our people working together across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, as well as our elected members who sat on the Shadow Authority. I would like to pay personal tribute to the work of our partners within the Isle of Wight Council, whose support and efforts towards the combination were absolutely vital. We wouldn't have reached this landmark without the collaboration and professionalism shown by their councillors and teams. Neil was formerly the CFO for both Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service. The shared senior team was just one of the areas which already linked both services, as well as the control room and academy training centre. The decision to combine the two services into a new organisation was made following a public consultation in 2018 and will see a solely fire-focused authority govern the Isle of Wight's fire service for the first time. Deputy Chief Fire Officer Steve Apter, who lives on the Isle of Wight, said, "This is a momentous point in the history of the fire service across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, as our two organisations embark on our continued mission to make life safer for those in our communities. As a resident of the island and a former Isle of Wight Chief Fire Officer, I have been able to witness the close links and strong bonds that have formed between our teams working across the Solent. Every fire station remains open. Every fire engine remains available. We are now set to commence an exciting and innovative programme of investment across our sites, equipment and fleet, ensuring our organisation continues to deliver and improve upon the exceptional service we provide to the people of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. The new Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Authority will govern the organisation and has been meeting as a shadow authority in preparation for the formal combination that took place at midnight on the 31st of March. The authority was signed off by the Home Office in early 2020. It will be made up of representatives from Hampshire County Council, Isle of Wight Council, Portsmouth City Council and Southampton City Council.
This is Den reading from the Isle of Wight County Press. High street shops told they can open until 10 p.m. on April the 12th. Non-essential shops will be able to remain open until 10 p.m. Monday to Saturday, according to ministers. The move is to provide a safe return to the high street when non-essential retailers reopen on April the 12th as part of Boris Johnson's plans to ease lockdown. All going to plan, the Prime Minister's roadmap will see non-essential stores reopen their doors next month. Communities Secretary Robert Jenrick announced new rules to help reduce the coronavirus infection rate as the country eases out of lockdown restrictions. Mr Jenrick announced the new rules ahead of the next step out of lockdown, starting today when the rule of 6 returns and the stay-at-home message is relaxed slightly. Shops will be able to extend their opening hours from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. to help customers to avoid peak times and ease transport pressures, according to the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. Announcing the temporary measure, Mr Jenrick said, "To support businesses to reopen and recover, I've extended measures to allow shops to stay open for longer. This is part of a package of support to help reopen our shops and high streets safely, backed by £56 million. This will provide a much-needed boost for many businesses, protecting jobs, reducing pressure on public transport and supporting people and communities to continue to visit their high streets safely and shop locally. To support businesses to reopen and recover, I've extended measures to allow shops to stay open for longer. Backed by our new £56 million Welcome Back Fund, we are supporting the safe reopening of our shops and high streets." This is by Robert Jenrick on pic.twitter.com/capital letters EWEY capital E 7 capital WX 0Y. Robert Jenrick at Robert Jenrick brackets March 26, 2021. The government has also announced it will extend flexible working hours on construction sites and will allow food deliveries to supermarkets over more time periods. Other measures are also included, keeping the flexibility for pubs and restaurants to put up marquees to help increase seating capacity in a COVID-secure way.
This is an article from On the Wight, read by Terry. Support will remain for those who have been shielding. Shielding will pause from this Wednesday, but the safety net of support will remain, say Isle of Wight Council. Vulnerable islanders are being reassured that the safety net of support will stay in place when shielding is paused from Wednesday the 31st of March. Support put in place by the Isle of Wight Council at the start of the first COVID-19 lockdown last March, and which has continued ever since, will carry on for months ahead, even after the current national lockdown is lifted. The authority has written to thousands of clinically extremely vulnerable people to remind them of what that includes. Helpline available. The Council's helpline on 01983 823 600 is available for anyone who feels vulnerable, needs help because of lockdown or self-isolation, or who is alone with no local network of friends, family or neighbours and needs support. See the Council's website for details of opening times. The Council has also launched a new telecheck service as part of its Wight Care offer, providing friendly chat and catch-up social calls, as well as welfare calls to check people are safe and well. For more information, please call the team on 01983 821 105 or email wightcare, one word, at iow.gov.uk. Additional information is also available on the Keep the Island Safe website, with sections on support and guidance, vaccinations, testing, self-isolation and prevention guidance. This includes links to many local organisations and businesses offering support, such as Age UK Isle of Wight and Citizens Advice Isle of Wight, as well as practical support like out and about cards to help people feel more confident as national pandemic restrictions ease. If you are clinically extremely vulnerable and have not already done so, you can request priority access to supermarket delivery slots. You had until 31st of March to register by visiting the government website, so that time has now gone, unfortunately. The government has confirmed that participating supermarkets will continue to offer priority access until at least the 21st of June 2021. Some supermarkets may extend your priority access beyond this date. Simon Bryant, the Council's Director of Public Health, said, "While advice to shield is ending on the 31st of March, we do understand it may take some time for people to adjust. We know that shielding has not been easy, and we would like to thank you for your efforts during this challenging time. We still recommend that you take precautions to protect yourself while the virus is still spreading in our communities. Continue to maintain social distancing, wash your hands regularly, and avoid touching your face. Remember, hands, face, space. Also, continue to minimize the number of social interactions that you have. The fewer social interactions you have, the lower your risk of catching COVID-19. We want to reassure people who have been shielding for the last 3 months and those who are self-isolating that our support for people who do not have anyone else to call on will continue. We hope that in time the demand will reduce and that infection rates continue to fall. But while there is a need, we will be there with partners to help.
Hello, this is Sue, reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight verge cutting initiative proves successful for environment. A verge cutting initiative on the Isle of Wight that encourages biodiversity is proving a success for wildlife, wildflowers and mental health. A partnership between Island Roads, Isle of Wight Association of Local Councils and the Isle of Wight AONB partnership is highlighting a new approach to the management of road verges on the island called Nature's Highways. Following on from workshops in summer 2019 and the publication of the IWAONB Nature's Highways Strategy 2020, the parishes of Shorewall, Chillerton and Gatcombe have been working with Island Roads on a pilot verge management scheme. Not only does this allow wildflowers to bloom, but also providing corridors for pollinating insects, birds and small mammals. These wildlife corridors help bring nature to people, strengthening connections with the environment and improving quality of life, including mental health. The partnership has produced a leaflet, Nature's Highways, Roadside Verges on the Isle of Wight, which has been distributed across the pilot area to islanders to let them know how and why the verges are being managed. It is hoped that the Isle of Wight will join many other local authority areas across the UK that are looking at the sustainable, wildlife-friendly management of roadside verges and other green spaces. Gillian Belbin of Chillerton and Gatcombe Parish Council said, "Our verge surveys in the spring and summer of 2020 have demonstrated how beneficial the management scheme has been in increasing the flowering plants and insect life in our parish lanes. We look forward to continuing this strategy in future years." Richard Grogan, lead officer for the Isle of Wight AONB, said, "Following the successful AONB-led designation of the Isle of Wight as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, the adoption of the pilot schemes is very welcome. We would like to thank Island Roads and the parish councils in the AONB who have helped make these pilot schemes a success, and we are keen to support similar schemes elsewhere on the island." Dave Wallace, Island Roads Operations and Maintenance Manager, said, "As we have shown with the recent changes to the way we carry out weed removal, we are always willing to discuss new approaches to the safe management of the highway network, particularly so when it delivers environmental benefits. We are really pleased to be part of this project. Verge management is an issue of great local interest, and we are always open to suggestions as to how we can continue to meet our contractual obligations in a way that is kind to our natural environment." Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley said, "I am pleased to see a new approach to the management of verges being piloted on the island. It's important we protect our wildlife habitats and retain as much natural beauty as possible where safe to do so. I am grateful to all those involved in the Nature's Highway project, and I hope to see this approach extended across the island."
Alison reading an article from On the Wight entitled Isle of Wight NHS Services over the Easter holiday. Full details of NHS services available over the Easter holiday on the Isle of Wight. Your NHS services are still available to support you for your health needs over the Easter holiday weekend. Some pharmacies will be open on Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Easter Monday, and details of opening hours are available online. People are still advised to call before visiting their pharmacy in case there has been a change to the opening hours. Dr. Michelle Legg, GP and Clinical Chair of NHS Isle of Wight Clinical Commissioning Group, said, "As we head into the Easter bank holiday weekend, I want to remind people that NHS services are still available for those who need help. People who feel unwell or need some quick advice can visit a pharmacy, which often can provide over-the-counter medication to support. As well as pharmacies, the following options are available this Easter. NHS 111 online, www.111.nhs.uk is able to provide advice and care for a range of issues. Please only call 111 if you can't get online. For mental health support, over 18s can call the Safe Haven on 01983 520168 or email safehaven@2saints, that's 2 spelt TWO.org.uk from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekends and bank holidays. People can also call NHS 111 for mental health support. Isle of Wight Urgent Treatment Centre, St Mary's Hospital. Call NHS 111 and if appropriate they may signpost you to the UTC. Please do not turn up without taking advice from NHS 111. The COVID-19 helpline 01983 823 600 is open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Good Friday, Easter Saturday and Easter Monday. It's closed Easter Sunday. It reopens at 9 a.m. on Tuesday the 6th of April. There are a number of different options available to people who do need help over the long weekend, such as NHS 111 and walk-in centres and minor injury units, so please get in touch if you have a concern, as the NHS is still here for you. However, for life-threatening situations such as heart attacks, strokes and serious blood loss, use our emergency department and/or 999. The COVID-19 guidance of hand washing, face coverings and social distancing remains in place even if you've received your vaccination. If you display COVID symptoms, high temperature, new continuous cough or a loss of taste or smell, then please self-isolate and get tested.
This is an article from On the Wight, read by Terry. Isle of Wight Food Bank has supported 36,000 islanders with food parcels in the last 10 years. During their busiest month, Isle of Wight Food Bank provided over 900 emergency food parcels. The Isle of Wight Food Bank is marking 10 years of supporting local people in crisis. Since we were established in 2011, more than 28,000 adults and 18,000 children have received a 3-day emergency food parcel. Food Bank Manager Hannah King says, "For the past 10 years I have consistently felt humbled by the commitment, dedication and generosity that has enabled the food bank to support those who have come to us. For all who have donated food and finances, I thank you. I have absolute admiration and respect for our teams of volunteers who give their time in so many ways in assisting us in helping those in need within our local community. And without them, we would not be able to achieve the level of service we offer." Over the last couple of decades, food banks across the UK have provided incredible practical support to people in poverty. However, we are acutely aware that this kind of response shouldn't be needed, and so our goal is to have an island that has no need for a food bank. The Isle of Wight Food Bank began with just a handful of volunteers in a cow's warehouse providing necessary food to up to 50 people each month, and now distributes from 5 centres around the Isle of Wight. At our maximum, before the pandemic, we were operating with almost 200 volunteers, and during our busiest month, we provided over 900 emergency food parcels. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the generous island community who have shown ongoing support over the last 10 years, enabling us to continue. Thank you to all the volunteers, staff and trustees who have made the food bank what it is today. Thank you to the churches and YMCA who host our food bank centres. Those who use the food bank are signposted to professionals who provide necessary help and opportunities to move forward. Thank you to all the agencies and charities who partner with us to provide this necessary service. #more than just food. Thank you also to the many churches, shops, schools, businesses, fundraisers, ambassadors, groups and individuals who continually show their support by donating their time, expertise, food and funds, without which we would not be able to continue. One of our highlights during our 10 years was being awarded the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service, which is the highest award given to volunteer groups across the UK to recognise outstanding work done in their own communities. We are thankful to be part of the Trussell Trust, who not only provide us with needed resources and outstanding support, but also campaigns to end the need for food banks in the United Kingdom.
This is Lisa, CEO of Sight for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News. With our year end this week, it has been a very busy week with my accountancy head on, making sure that everything is ready for our year end on the 31st of March. I started at Sight for Wight as the finance officer back in January 2018, having qualified as the first British woman who is registered blind to qualify ever as a chartered accountant back in the 90s. My role then was to make sure that every penny spent was spent wisely. In my new expanded role as CEO, this of course is still very, very important, but equally now I must ensure that what comes in at least equals what is going out. We have launched several new projects during this year, which of course has been a difficult one due to the pandemic, but the Alexa skill is being launched next month. Our Hello Everyone audible QR codes are rolling out fast. Our befriending scheme has had an enormous take-up, and now we are actually seeking additional volunteers to make the weekly phone calls to our members. Our 2020 Vision Strategy document is now fully in place, and the low vision journey mapped against members' needs is almost complete. The newsletter is now fully established at being every other month, and we have received so many wonderful comments about it. And with Talking News set to return in May to USB and onto the Alexa skill, we really feel we have achieved quite a lot this year. But of course, the most important thing is that we are here for individual members. So if you ever have anything you need, whether it's equipment, advice, just a chat, or anything else, never hesitate to call the office on 522205. Thank you very much for listening to this week's Talking News. Lisa.
In the February newsletter, we enclosed an eye for our Looking Out of Lockdown art project. This is just a reminder to colour, paint, stick anything that takes your fancy and return it to us at Millbrook House so we can display it and it can be part of a time capsule that we can keep for many years. Sight for Wight would like to thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Talking News. We would also like to thank our volunteers for reading, and a particular thank you to the Isle of Wight County Press, On the Wight, Island Echo, Isle of Wight Radio, and a special thank you to Vectis Radio. A very happy Easter to you all from everyone at Sight for Wight.